This is the Closure House, where we discuss estrangement, boundaries, no contact, and the difficult things about relationship that a lot of people avoid. I'm Jessica, I'm your host, and today we're going to talk about a common feeling that people have. Did you ever realize that you're more angry at the parent who didn't abuse you than the one that did? Because this is something that's happening often when we're talking about estranged children, and I want to explain to you why that's happening. So, we've talked about dysfunctional families and the unit and how everybody plays a part in that dysfunctional family to keep the abuse going. And when somebody leaves the family, they break the cycle, and a lot of times they become the scapegoat and they become the blame for everything that's happening in the family because the premise is to keep the abuse going, everybody has to play their role. So when somebody leaves, the role is broken, and then, like I said, scapegoated and the whole nine. Well, when it comes to the enabling parent, a lot of times in adulthood, people are like, I am more mad at the parent that didn't abuse me than I ever have been at the parent who did. Right? I think that there is this betrayal that happens when you're thinking about the enabling parent. It's like when you're growing up and you're in an abusive situation, you're noticing that the abusive parent, like you're walking on eggshells, you're trying not to upset them, and the enabling parent becomes kind of like it feels like on your side. They're the one that's like, don't upset this person. So, like, let's say, for example, the abusive person is a mother. The dad is like, don't say anything. Don't upset your mother. Don't do this. Oh, we got to do this. It's almost like they're with you in the sinking ship. They're like, we have to behave this way. These are the eggshells we have to walk on for safety. Don't upset her. Don't make her mad. But in the background, the enabling parent is actually a part of the abuse. So what I hear in therapy is people saying, but my dad never hit me. He never hurt me. So why am I so mad at him? And I just want to talk to you about why that is. In adulthood, I really believe it's because now you know, because you're an adult, what they could have done to step in. You know that they could have stopped the abuse and they made a decision not to. You know that they could have stood up to that other parent, taken you away, made a different choice, and that they didn't. So when you're growing up, it's like we're stuck in this. We're here together. We have to endure this, and this is how it goes because it's the only way to keep our family together. So hang your head low and walk on eggshells, right? But when you get older, you're like, oh, they could have ended this if they wanted. They could have done anything other than what they did. So that becomes this betrayal, and it makes it really hard to get past. So a lot of times when I'm talking with adult children who are estranged, they're like, I won't talk to either parent. And when I talk to that estranged parent that was not the actual physical abuser, they're like, I did nothing wrong. But also they didn't stop it. And I think that takes me to the next point. Once you get to a certain age, you realize they could have stopped it and they didn't. And because they didn't stop it, you're angry with them because they made it seem like you guys were both suffering through something that you didn't have to be suffering through had they just stopped it. And then there's this other side that happens with the enabling parent where they kind of minimize the abuse. So they're just like, oh, you know how she gets, or you know how he gets, or, they start saying things that invalidate your experience with them. So when you're bringing a problem to them, let's say you're like, oh my goodness, she screamed at me, she hit me, and I was so upset about it. And it's like, that's who she is. That's how she behaves. You should have made a different decision. And in that people start to take the blame because remember, if you are this abused child, you feel like you're the problem. Somebody's beating you up because you're the problem. Somebody's doing something because of something you've done, not them taking responsibility for the abuse that they are doing. Instead, they're blaming you. It's like, well, had you not done this, then that. It starts feeling like minimizing. So when you get older, you're looking at that same other parent like, why didn't you stop this? And why didn't you support me? You knew that this was wrong. And I think when you're younger, you know that something's wrong, but sometimes you feel like if you're a kid and you're being abused, sometimes you don't really understand the magnitude of what's happening during the abuse. Like when you get older and then you have kids, like just think about everybody who's told you like along the way, oh, wait till you have kids. When you have kids, you're going to understand. And then think about all the people, you included, who had kids and were like, When is it gonna get that bad? And you've made a decision to not beat your kids or not abuse your kids, and you're like, "When will it get that bad that I would have to do that?" Once you start seeing, "Oh, I could literally make a conscious choice to just not hit my kid, or I could make a conscious choice to not yell at my kid. If they're upset, I could literally, instead of towering and screaming over them, I could get down to their level. I could listen to my kid and we can talk back and forth about what they agree and don't agree with without feeling disrespected." Like, once you start realizing that, it's very difficult to understand what happened to you. So there is some other betrayal that happens when it's like, "Oh my goodness, you could have made a different decision and you didn't." So when you're a kid and you're hearing this, people are like, "Just wait till you get older. Wait till you have kids." You're really thinking, "Okay, well, when I get there, I'll have a better understanding." But what I've heard when I'm sitting with people in therapy is that they don't understand. They have less of an understanding as they get older, me included in my own experience, because it's just like now you have an understanding of what it takes to be a parent. And you have an understanding of what decisions can be done the same or differently. And if you decide I'm going to make the same choices, then there's a conscious effort in making them. And then you realize, okay, my parent could have made a different choice and they didn't. So sometimes it's going to feel like that. You're going to be looking at that enabling parent like, why didn't you do something? And then the anger gets directed towards them. We don't really get into the grief of estrangement. Like when you're missing a family dynamic, like the family you hoped for, and then you realize that that's not what you're getting here. There is grief associated. Even if you're like, leaving my family is the best choice I ever need to make, there's still grief associated sometimes. Because anytime you lose something, grief is associated. Even if it's the best decision for you, it may not show up as sadness, but grief will show up. And in the process, you'll have to grieve a parent that you thought was on your side. And then you'll realize that, oh my goodness, the abuse continued because they did nothing. And my life could have been different. We weren't both suffering through this. They were covering up something for this other parent. And because they were covering it up, I suffered through it longer. And I think the betrayal of that is what people have to grieve as well. You have to grieve thinking that you had some safety in a parent that really facilitated the abuse to continue because the enabling parent is usually protecting the family image. If you think about it nowadays, a lot of people aren't very I'll live and die by my family. There's a different type of loyalty to family nowadays than there was before. Before, it was like, it doesn't matter what somebody in the family does to you, we're not talking about it if it's bad, we're protecting the family image at all costs, and it doesn't matter what's happening behind these closed doors, you are, like, disloyal if you talk about it. But now with social media and other things, I think one, people have realized, oh, I was being abused. And that's why a lot of people leave their families. And then two, I think people are like seeing that things could be different. Whereas before it was kind of like, this is just what we do. This is just how family is. So as you get older, you start to realize that this is not how family has to be. And protecting the family's image does not become everything. Instead, people start seeking out healthy relationships. But I think the part that makes it hard as well is that when we talk about enmeshment, everybody that's protecting the abuser is on the same level emotionally. And because they are on the same level, a lot of times they can't see anything different because anything different could disrupt the pattern. And if you disrupt the pattern, it requires change. And a lot of times people just don't want to change. And then there's other things that happen with the enabling parent. Like sometimes they really try to force you to reconnect with the abusive parent. And that kind of goes back into the minimization of it. They're like, you should talk to your mom. You should talk to your dad. You should talk to this person again. And a lot of people, they feel like, well, you don't understand what's happened to me. That's when they feel like you're really minimizing this when they're trying to encourage you to talk to that parent again or the person that hurt you. Like, I know that I've heard things like this even when I'm sitting with people in therapy. Sometimes they will gaslight the child and they'll try to make the child like, oh no, I don't remember that way. No, I think that you did this, or I think this happened, and not that. And then the person when we're in therapy is like, I am so sure that this happened like this. I've even talked to them about it, processed it with the enabling parent and about what the abusive parent has done. And then they go back later and they're like, oh no, I don't remember that way. Or they just kind of, the enabling parent kind of gets this pass where they get to pretend that they were the good parent. And because they were the good parent, they were with you. You guys were in the same side, where it's like we were both working towards a common goal, and that was surviving the abusive parent. But a lot of times, people in adulthood start realizing no, the enabling parent helped fuel the abuse, they helped the abuse to continue. And that is why sometimes you're more mad at the person who did the enabling than you are at the person who was actually abusive. So you can understand why the enabling parent took the role that they took, but that does not reduce the impact that it created from them making that decision. And so you got to tell me in the comments, were you more mad at the enabling parent? Did you have an enabling parent? Were both parents abusive? Who else was it? Like, was there an enabling uncle, aunt, that kind of thing. Because I know when I'm speaking with people in therapy a lot of times, and even in my own experience, it's like when you're younger, you don't understand what other people around you could have done to prevent it. You only understand what's happening, and they become safe people that you can kind of run to. But at the same time, they're the same people that could have ended it. So there becomes this like tug of war feeling for them where anger could show up. Online, when I'm doing my content, we talk about when anger shows up, that means there's an unmet need. So either way, if you find yourself angry with enablers or the other parent, there may be something that you still need there. Estrangement is not just about the abuse that occurred. It's about betrayal or not having enough protection. And other times it can be about unmet expectation. So it's not just about what happened to you. It was what was allowed to happen to you because nobody did anything to help you. And I will always believe that people deserved better than adults who knew the abuse were going on and did nothing to stop it. The biggest thing is if you find yourself angry with your enabling parent, even more angry than the abusive parent, that's valid. They didn't protect you either. They helped facilitate the abuse. They're like an accomplice. And there may be times even in your life where you're like, I can get past this. And when you do, you'll continue contact. And when you can't, you'll probably end contact. Both are valid. This is the Closure House, where we don't shrink to stay connected. Thanks for listening.